We are following breaking news. Mayor Olivia Chow has hinted to CP24 that the WNBA may be coming to the city. This comes amid multiple reports that Toronto will be the next expansion team.
Leafs management addressed the media today after another disappointing playoff exit. New MLSE boss Keith Pelly says that the goal is to win and nothing else is good enough.
And a man has been injured in a confrontation with security at Drake's Bridle Path mansion. It's the second reported trespasser at the rapper's home since one of his security guards was injured in a high-profile shooting outside the gates Tuesday.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thank you for joining us. We continue to follow breaking news. Mayor Olivia Chow says we should expect good news about our city getting a WNBA expansion team. Take a listen.
Wait for it. Yes, I do know some of the excitement. I wait for it. Hopefully there'll be something later on.
Okay, let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst with more details on the possibility of the WNBA coming to Toronto. These reports are out there, Scott, and what do we know about an impending announcement?
Yeah, there you have it from the mayor herself, expecting some good news soon, saying wait for it. As you said, this comes amid multiple reports that a WNBA franchise has been awarded to Toronto and would come to the city in 2026. Of course, this comes at a huge moment for women's basketball on the heels of the March Madness tournament that saw players like, Angel Reese and Cameron Clark, really a whole list of players that are just really having a moment right now that are proving that women's basketball on the heels of Caitlin Clark as well, getting drafted to the WNBA, that viewership is through the roof on TV. Attendance has been through the roof for March Madness and WNBA as well. And so Toronto getting a 14th franchise potentially, as the Bay Area is the next city to get a WNBA team. That would make it 13 overall teams. So a team in Toronto would be the 14th franchise. Here's reaction already we're getting from fans and also a cousin of a WNBA player. Here's what they had to say.
I think it's good for the females, make more confident. Maybe they could get somewhere else. There's my coworkers. But I used to play basketball, so it just makes you think you could get somewhere else maybe, right? There's somewhere that the females can go now.
I'm pretty excited, the city's needed a new team that might actually win something this year or in the future, would be cool.
Awesome, amazing. Yes, we really need that. I think it's a time that women actually have some time to showcase their talent.
I think Toronto's proven time and time again that they love our sports here. And so with the WNBA, I was at the game last year and it was absolutely electric the entire week leading up to the game. So I couldn't be more excited to have the chance to witness women's professional basketball and have them join us here as professional women's sports.
So Bakari and Lena, of course, that is Sarah Nurse, PWHL star, who's actually going to play tonight as Toronto goes for its second playoff win at the Coca-Cola Coliseum on the X grounds. And she is the cousin of WNBA player Kia Nurse, and one of the growing number of Canadians who are making it big in the WNBA, along with Bridget Carlton, Letitia Amahir, and recently drafted Aaliyah Edwards, who had a big March Madness tournament as well. So the popularity of women's sports is growing. We've seen it with the PWHL. Now, according to these reports, the WNBA team coming to Toronto will be run by Larry Tannenbaum's Kilmer Sports Ventures. We reached out to that organization today, and they say they have no update at this time. We also got a statement from the WNBA that they say we continue to engage in productive conversations with interested ownership groups in a number of markets, and the granting of an expansion team requires a vote from the WNBA and NBA Board of of Governors. So that is what we're working on right now as hopes continue to remain extremely high. And as you can see, the fan interest is there for a WNBA franchise here in Toronto on the heels of last year, Scotiabank Arena hosting a WNBA exhibition game, and just last week in Edmonton also hosting a WNBA exhibition game. Both those games sold out. Bakari and Lena?
Yeah, the interest is there for sure, and there's a lot of excitement around this development today, Scott. What do you think this is going to mean for women's sports, both for Toronto and for Canada?
This would be huge for the development, not just of basketball, but women's sports in general. As I mentioned, we've seen the massive growth of the PWHL this year, only starting on New Year's Day and now in the middle of their postseason. And we've seen some massive crowds for that. Scotiabank Arena having a sellout crowd, the Bell Centre in Montreal having a sellout crowd for women's hockey. And as we've been talking about the WNBA expansion in terms of viewership has been massive as well on the heels of that March Madness tournament. That's Caitlin Clark really be the #1 draft pick in the WNBA after that massive run through the March Madness tournament. And so she signed a deal recently with Nike too. So the growth is there, the potential is there. This would mean a lot for Toronto and Canadian sports as a whole.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst reporting live. Thanks so much for this, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Well, the Maple Leafs management said losing another first-round playoff series simply it's just not good enough. And they are looking at all options in the offseason to make the team better.
And CP24's Melissa Duggan is following that very closely. She joins us live with the latest. Melissa.
Hey, Lena. Hey, Bakari. Any Maple Leafs fans that were hoping for a detailed list, some concrete plans, how this team is going to turn things around after that disappointing exit, well, spoiler alert, you are not going to hear it. Leafs management in front of cameras just a short time ago here at Ford Performance Center. They hinted at changes coming, but no specifics given, no timeline even. But they did give us some insight into their decision-making process. Have a listen.
Analysis at the end of every season. We look at our team and we look forward and we look for ways to be better. And we do that every year. In the past, I believe that there are times where you talk about patience. and I still believe that there are times where patience is the suitable call. However, when you see patterns persist, and the results don't change, you have to adjust the way that you think about things.
We didn't accomplish the goals that we had set for ourselves that I felt were attainable. And some years you look back and you meet expectations, you exceed expectations. To me, we fell short. We left some on the table. And ultimately, that responsibility is mine. I was brought in here. The hockey operations is under my purview, the players, the coaches, the staff. So I take full responsibility of everything that goes on the ice.
Now, the Leafs president and GM, both, the first thing they said when at the mic, they were acknowledging the shakeup we heard about yesterday. That was the exit of head coach Sheldon Keefe. They both thanked him for his service, both saying that they appreciated the things that he did for the team. Okay, the other person who was at the table today was MLSE CEO Keith Pelley. He just got the job in January. He actually took it on officially in April. Hasn't been around that long, but he did say that winning is his top priority. Nothing else matters. And Bakari and Lena, he also defined what success is for him, and that is getting the Stanley Cup. Going to share an update a little later on, too, about players. We did learn a few details there about the current roster, how they're feeling, what we could expect from them.
All right, Melissa, thanks so much for that. We look forward to those conversations.
Well, the Toronto women's hockey team was on the ice this morning getting ready for Game 2 against Minnesota tonight.
Toronto is coming off a 4-0 win on Wednesday, giving them a 1-0 lead in the best-of-5 series. Natalie Spooner opened the scoring while captain Blair Turnbull scored twice. Kristen Campbell stopped all 26 shots she faced for the shutout. The opener was played before a sold-out crowd at Coca-Cola Coliseum, and there are no tickets left for tonight's game.
I think when we think of playoff time, like obviously that can be seen as a lot of pressure. Obviously you want to elevate your game as well, and you want to take things a little bit more seriously, but it's important to stay at the core to who you are and your team identity. And so with us, we just keep things light, have a lot of fun. And I mean, it's a pregame skate. We're out there for 15, 20 minutes, have some music, good vibes, and be ready to go for tonight.
It's awesome. Obviously, the ice, the atmosphere here, it's been amazing. It's cool. I have a buddy at home, Greg McKegg. He played for the Marlies, and he's up in the rink, so pretty cool. I was telling Mike Ellis, who's also from St. Thomas, that, and obviously being able to see that, it's so cool being from St. Thomas and having someone that I've been on the ice with in the summer and trained with before. So it's definitely a great atmosphere out there and a great facility.
A lot of our adjustments that we'll make are just stuff that it's not that we felt Minnesota forced us to make any adjustments. There's just some adjustments within our game that we got to be better at. We thought there was a little bit of a disconnect in our D-zone coverage where our wingers got caught sort of pushing outside the dots, anticipating breakouts instead of clogging things up in the middle and then jumping to your breakout spot. So I suspect we'll clean that up tonight.
Puck drop tonight is set for 7 o'clock, and once again, that's going to be a sold-out crowd.
Well, Toronto Fire Chief Matthew Pegg has announced that he's retiring later this year. In a post on social media, Chief Pegg writes, "This morning I advised the Toronto Fire Command team of my intention to retire from my position as fire chief. My last day on duty will be October 4th, 2024. Thank you, Toronto, from the bottom of my heart." Well, 3 people have been injured in an overnight stabbing in Mississauga. This is a live look at the scene right now. You can still see that the area is cordoned off. There's a number of police cruisers out there. Peel Police, they were called to the Wolfdale Road and Forestwood Drive area right here just before 1 o'clock in the morning for a domestic incident. A female teenager was rushed to a trauma center in life-threatening condition, while a woman and a male teen they suffered non-life-threatening injuries, and police say that a man was taken into custody. There's no threat to public safety or any outstanding suspects. That large police presence, as you can see, is still there. Police are investigating after a car crashed into a house in Mississauga. The vehicle struck this home on Fieldsgate Drive near Burnhamthorpe and Dixie just after 10:30 last night. A woman who was in the car suffered minor injuries. The cause is under investigation. No word yet if charges will be laid. And a man's been arrested in a string of sexual assaults. 44-year-old Jimmy Viteri of Toronto was taken into custody yesterday and charged with sexual assault and 2 counts each of sexual interference and sexual assault of a person under 16. Police say Tuesday morning he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl near Jane and Wilson. Then on Thursday, police say that he sexually assaulted an 11-year-old girl and a 34-year-old woman, and police believe that there may be more victims, so they're asking anyone with information to contact them. Coming up next on CP24 Live at Noon, we're going to sit down with TSN Radio's Matt Cauz about the end-of-season news conference held today by Leafs management. What's next? We'll find out. Leafs management addressed the media today after another disappointing playoff exit, and for a closer look at their comments, we're joined live by TSN Radio's Matt Cauz. Matt, before we get to that, we have to talk about this. The breaking news, WNBA team reportedly coming to Toronto. The expansion team, what's going on here? What have you heard? What does this look like?
This is all about Larry Tannenbaum getting it done to bring a WNBA team here. This is something that he wanted to do with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, but they said no. So he went off on his own. It's going to be the 14th team that is coming into the WNBA. This is a massive, massive deal for the city of Toronto. And at a time with Caitlin Clark and huge ratings on the women's side of things, the timing couldn't be better. And speaking of timing, so Golden State, they're going to be getting an expansion team 2025. Our reports are saying that the Toronto WNBA team will be 2026. Can you talk about that and the build-up there? The build-up's going to be massive, and I think what you're going to have is a good infrastructure set in place. If they do go and play at Coca-Cola Stadium, you know, you get around 9,000 people in there. That is a good size. We've seen it with the PWHL team where Toronto is playing in the same arena. So the infrastructure set up. I think the most important thing here for the build-up is there is going to be so many people behind this league and helping it out, and it does start with Larry Tannenbaum. This is a guy connected at every level of the NBA. So you're going into a situation where you have experience behind it. This feels like a slam dunk for the city of Toronto.
Okay, and Matt, speaking of women's sports, we have to talk more about the PWHL because, you know, Toronto is playing Minnesota. This is another sold-out game.
Oh, yeah, it is. And it's kind of what we expected. How did the season begin? They started with like sellout crowds for game one on January 1st against New York at the Mattamy Center. And they actually lost that game. They started out 1-4. Then they became the hottest team in the PWHL. They've got the leading scorer, Natalie Spooner, the second leading scorer, and Sarah Nurse. This is a stacked team that beat Minnesota 4-0 in the first game, a 26-save shutout by a goalie who we could eventually see as the leading goalie for Team Canada at future Olympics. So this is a great start for Toronto, taking on a Minnesota team that only qualified for the playoffs on the final day of the regular season in the PWHL.
And Matt, speaking of Natalie Spooner, not only is she a top scorer, but she is a fan favorite. Do you see Toronto taking it all?
I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why you wouldn't think that. I mean, the level of talent is there. They're one of the top scoring teams. They're one of the better defensive teams in the PWHL. You know, we've now seen that, you know, we get quality goaltending that sometimes we don't see on the Leafs side of things. Absolutely, the talent is there. They're the number one seed for a reason. And there was a big gap between them and Montreal, between first and second. And also, who finished the year on a strong point? It was Toronto as well. They won their last 4 games to end the season.
And also, speaking of hockey, you know, look, championships. It didn't happen for the Leafs. We did hear from, you know, Leafs management earlier today. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is we expected the platitudes that we got from Keith Pelly, from Brendan Shanahan, and Brad Treliving. I thought the most interesting thing was the things they didn't say. They didn't go on and on about how they're really close to winning it all, like we heard from John Tavares. There was no specific proclamation that the core 4 is all going to be back, and they 100% believe in Tavares and Nylander and Marner and Matthews. I mean, Matthews and Nylander aren't going anywhere. And Shanahan off the top said, yes, patience was needed in the past, but you sort of get the sense that this is going to be a more aggressive and a busier offseason for the Maple Leafs than what we've seen the past half decade.
Okay, so what do you see happening in this offseason in terms of going into the next season and changes?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of very awkward conversation. And starting first with Mitch Marner, who's got 1 year left on his deal, and I think they would look to move him if they could get if they could get a reasonable package back, sort of what happened with the Florida Panthers, who a couple of years ago, they had one of their best seasons. Then they traded Jonathan Huberdeau to get Matthew Tkachuk, and it made them a better playoff team, not necessarily a better regular season team. So I think that is sort of the model they're going to look at. I don't know if they find any takers for John Tavares. Also keep an eye on even a Morgan Riley, who just signed that long-term deal. But the Maple Leafs actually had a very good record without Morgan Riley in the lineup. This could be a year where we see major changes happening.
Okay, talking Toronto sports, past, present, and future with TSN Radio's Matt Haas. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we're going to talk to CTV crime expert Mark Mendelson about the latest on the investigation into the shooting at Drake's house.
A man was injured yesterday in a confrontation with security at Drake's Bridle Path mansion. Police say they were called to the home on Park Lane Circle around 3 p.m. for reports of a trespasser. Before police arrived, there was a confrontation between the man in his 20s and security at the home. A shooting in front of the mansion earlier this week that injured another security guard. That, of course, remains under investigation. Police have yet to release a description of the suspect vehicle that fled the area. And for a closer look at the investigation into the shooting at Drake's mansion, we're now joined live by Mark Mendelson, CTV's crime expert. Mark, it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Lena.
So we have now seen 2 intruders trying to access Drake's home, an added challenge for the police service trying to keep the public away. How do they navigate this?
It's not that, first of all, it's not that big of a surprise, given the notoriety of both Drake and Lamar and the shooting and just that neighborhood as a whole. So none of that surprises me. these types of events, these types of occurrences will often generate all kinds of emotions. And when you couple in that with some degree of a mental health issue, as we saw certainly with one of them who went directly to a hospital and was apprehended under the Mental Health Act, none of that surprises me. He's got his security guards that are looking after his property. And, you know, the police have increased their patrols in the area. You know, in terms of the media focus and in terms of sort of on-air sleuths and detectives who are out there throwing every kind of theory and motive behind all of this, as far as the police investigation goes, Lena, that's just white noise. I mean, it's extraneous. They're not looking at it. As we've talked a lot during this week, the evidence will dictate the course of the investigation, and where that evidence leads them is where they're going to go. They've been quiet. Really ever since the last press conference that we saw, you know, hours after the shooting, and I think that's certainly a tactical decision on the part of the police. You know, hold back information. They're trying to clearly identify the vehicle and the license plate and the driver, and speaking with the victim, who fortunately is going to survive his injuries. And they're not going to announce every step of their investigation, you know, for public consumption. You know, there's in the background, I'll infer that there are probably all kinds of search warrants and production orders that are being put in place, judicial orders, if you will. Efforts are being made with guns and gangs to locate that vehicle. Forensic ballistic work is being done on the shell casings and maybe the bullet that they retrieved from the body of the victim. So there's all kinds of investigative steps that are taking place behind the scenes. And quite frankly, that's where it should be at this point.
Yeah, you're right. They have been quiet, and they have to follow the facts, not the noise that we're seeing around this case. If Drake decides to hire private investigators, would we learn about that? Would Toronto police work with these private investigators?
Well, no, they more than likely won't. It's an active investigation. You know, private investigators are a secondary source of investigation for complainants, for clients. I'm one. And I can tell you that I wouldn't even think about going to the police and saying, what do you have? That's not how it works. The information from a private investigator is one way. Whatever they obtain will go to the police. They will assess it and give it weight and credibility, and it will be to assist the police investigation, not any outside investigation.
Okay, that's interesting. And everybody still wants to know, of course, Mark, does this have anything to do with the Kendrick Lamar beef? Realistically, how do Toronto police investigate that angle? Do they pick up the phone, call investigators in Los Angeles?
Well, between Lamar and Drake, there are literally millions of followers on different social media platforms. And I'm sure that there's all kinds of chatter, especially since the Animus came out days before this shooting between the two of them and you know, the lyrics they were putting into their songs, et cetera. So they're going to be looking at that, both with the management teams from both of these individuals, Drake and Lamar, and other social media open source information to see if there was any flags that went up, any threats that came out that may have been missed. There will be interviews with social media people who look after their accounts to see if there's anything that has come out, anything personal. They'll be reviewing that as well. And if somebody does have to be interviewed in another city, in another country like the U.S. or wherever, because it's a worldwide event in terms of social media, then it's simply contacting an investigator at that particular police service, giving them the background, letting them know what they need to do, and if they need to obtain some sort of judicial warrants or authorizations to identify you know, senders, because people, you know, use computers, they mask their identity all the time. And sometimes you do need warrants to get that subscriber information. That's all normal in any course of investigations that take you outside of Toronto proper.
Okay, I've got about 30 seconds left here, Mark. We have to remember that Toronto police do have access to video of the incident. How much do you think they know about suspects?
Well, it came out originally from the police that they did have the event. The shooting was captured on surveillance video. I don't know whether it was from Drake's home or from a neighbor, but they're going to be tracking that video all the way along to see where that vehicle was in that neighborhood. If they can figure out where it went after it got, say, closer to Bayview or to Leslie, on the way out of the bridle path area. And that's, you know, so it's vital. You know, videotape doesn't lie. It's not a witness. It can't be refuted. It is what it is. And it's a very important part of any, you know, future prosecution.
Okay, we'll have to see where this high-profile investigation goes. Mark Mendelson, CTV's crime expert. Always good to be with you. Thank you.
My pleasure, Lena. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Coming up next on CP24 Live at Noon, we continue to follow breaking basketball news. Multiple reports that the WNBA is coming to Toronto. Mayor Olivia Chow tells CP24 fans should expect good news sometime soon. Stay with us as our coverage continues.
And we're following breaking news from the world of basketball. Multiple reports that the WNBA is coming to Toronto. Mayor Olivia Chow tells CP24 that fans should expect good news soon.
Leafs management addressed the media today after another disappointing playoff exit. New MLSE boss Keith Pelly says the goal is to win and nothing else is good enough.
And a man has been injured in a confrontation with security at Drake's Bridle Path mansion. It's the second reported trespasser at the rapper's home since one of his security guards was injured in a high-profile shooting outside the gates on Tuesday.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Lena Latifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. The Maple Leafs management said that losing another first-round playoff series simply isn't good enough and that they are looking at all options in the offseason to make the team better.
CP24's Melissa Duggan has been following the story. You've been listening to the press conference very closely. Melissa, what did they say about the other options they're willing to explore?
Hey, Bakari. Hey, Lena. Listen, I was in the room during that season post-mortem. There were no smiles. There were solemn faces. The team's management acknowledging, yeah, it was a disappointing season. They know their fans are disappointed. They know their fans are demanding a championship. The first person who spoke was brand new MLSE CEO Keith Pelly. He reminded us at least twice, I counted, during today's news conference, that he's only been in the job for 4 weeks now. He's saying good simply isn't good enough. Earlier, he has signaled that he is not afraid of change. Here's an idea of what may be factoring into those potential future changes. Have a listen.
I can assure you that no decision will be made, like the decision earlier this week, without a detailed analysis that provides us the best chance to win. We need to win. Nothing else matters. And no doubt you've heard that before, but I am 1,000% committed to it.
Of course, the big shakeup announcement came yesterday when we learned that Leafs head coach Sheldon Keefe was being shown the door. Notably today, the Leafs president and GM, they were both sitting at the table there today. We heard from Brendan Shanahan. He is taking responsibility for the Leafs' poor performance. Here's what he had to say.
The reality of the situation is the ultimate responsibility is on me. The accountability is on me. Our playoff results have not been good enough. That's on me. The results that we've had in the playoffs, our players know, we know, I know, they're unacceptable. They're unacceptable to our fans, and they're unacceptable to all those that support the Toronto Maple Leafs.
We did hear some details about players, no changes with the players, but just a health update on some of their injuries that we saw play out over the postseason. We heard about Austin Matthews, and now learning what he was dealing with was some kind of food poisoning. Perhaps they suggested that combined with an injury may have factored in. Also, Joseph Woll, we learned that he also was dealing with an injury. That's why he wasn't playing in Game 7. But we did hear management say that they do have faith in Woll. We're going to stick around here for some more updates throughout the day. But no big changes so far, Lena and Bakari, when it comes to Leafs. But they are expected to make some changes to come.
Okay, CP24's Melissa Duggan. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
And we are following breaking basketball news here on CP24. Multiple reports that the WNBA is coming to Toronto. Mayor Olivia Chow tells CP24 fans should expect good news soon.
Wait for it. Yes, I do know some of the excitement. I wait for it. Hopefully there'll be something later on.
And her comments come amid multiple reports that Toronto is going to be the next expansion team in the WNBA. Larry Tannenbaum, the minority owner and chair of MLSE, will own the team, which is set to join the league in 2026. They will reportedly play out of the Coca-Cola Coliseum, and there are currently 12 WNBA teams. And the league announced earlier this year that Golden State would be getting a team in 2025.
I think that everyone needs to have a women's team because, I feel like women are always underrepresented in every single sport. I hope that at least we'll get one team that wins.
I think it's great. I think we should have more women's professional sports teams. They're good role models for our daughters.
I actually see a lot of propaganda on the subway of basketball players now, female basketball players, so it's good for them to get recognition.
And PWHL Toronto's Sarah Nurse says this is a great sports city.
I think Toronto's proven time and time again that they love our sports here. And so with the WNBA, I was at the game last year and it was absolutely electric the entire week leading up to the game. So I couldn't be more excited to have the chance to witness women's professional basketball and have them join us here as professional women's sports.
And a formal announcement about Toronto's team is expected later this month.
Well, the Toronto women's hockey team was on the ice this morning getting ready for Game 2 against Minnesota tonight.
Yeah, Toronto's coming off a 4-0 win on Wednesday, giving them a 1-0 lead in the best-of-5 series. Natalie Spooner opened the scoring, while Captain Blair Turnbull scored twice. Kristen Campbell stopped all 26 shots that she faced for the shutout. The opener was played before a sold-out crowd at Coca-Cola Coliseum. There are no tickets left for tonight's game.
It's been amazing. I think it's extremely unique to be able to walk through the concourse during intermissions on the ice and to be able to have that fan support in between periods. And it's just so cool. It's something we've never had, being able to walk through a concourse like that. So it gives you chills for sure, but it's definitely exciting.
We've tried to keep things really similar to how we've done in the regular season. And in the regular season, you can't really dwell on what just happened the game before because you have a completely new opponent who you need to look and strategize against. But when you look at a playoff time, like this is a series, and this is somebody that we could see 3 to 5 times. And so when you look at that, it's understanding their tendencies, what they like to do, their face-off plays, how they like to break out the puck, how they like to forecheck. And so there are definitely things that we pre-scouted and we know about Minnesota that are going to help us as we go through the series.
It would be great. We got a lot of work to do tonight to ensure that we're jumping into that Minnesota in that situation. But ultimately, that's the goal, is to be up 2-0 after tonight. But there's still a lot of work to be done before we can say that.
Puck drop tonight is set for 7 o'clock.
Well, it's going to be another tough weekend for drivers to get around the city.
On Sunday, the Sporting Life 10K run is going to result in road closures. Yonge Street will be closed between Eglinton and Davisville starting at 4 a.m., with the closure extending all the way down to Wellington Street starting at 7 a.m. until about 11 a.m. Runners will make their way onto Lakeshore, with the westbound lanes closed from Bay to Exhibition Grounds.
Starting at 10 p.m. tonight and until 5 a.m. on Sunday, the DVP on and off ramp at Lakeshore Boulevard and Dawn Roadway will be closed to facilitate Toronto hydro work for Waterfront Toronto.
There will be some modifications to the Lakeshore West GO train route this weekend. Trains will operate every 15 minutes between Union Station to Oakville GO, and then hourly between Oakville to West Harbor GO stations. And the change is to allow for critical track work along the corridor.
And there is a subway closure on Saturday on Line 1 between Davisville and Shepherd Young for planned track work. Shuttle buses will operate. Extra TTC staff will be available to assist customers.
And Metrolinx is sharing an update on the Finch LRT. Officials say that the line's maintenance and storage facility is complete, as are all of the rail and pedestrian shelters. Electricity connections are in place. Metrolinx says major construction is done at the terminal stations. Driver training, system testing, and work to address deficiencies is underway. A potential opening date was not shared in this update.
It is 12:39, 15 degrees. Let's get a check on the traffic situation. The lunch hour drive, Adjoa and Siayabwa, keeping a close eye on roads.
Yeah, I am, Lena. Good afternoon. And, it's already a busy Friday. Rush hour always comes a bit earlier on a Friday. If you are headed out, we are dealing with some problems on the westbound lanes of the Gardner. This is on the approach to Spadina. It is a stalled vehicle. Toronto transportation crews are on scene. As you can see, the right lane is blocked. Doesn't look like there's a delay, but there is one because it's backed up because of the construction happening east and westbound between Strawn and Dufferin. Also problems happening on the westbound lanes of the 401 in the express through Leslie. Another stalled vehicle, this one in the left lane. Traveling on the eastbound 401, already very jammed from Dixie out towards about the Dufferin stretch, and delays on the northbound DVP from Don Mills already all the way up to the 401. On city streets, crews on scene of a collision in North Toronto on St. Clair, right at Avenue Road. I'll send it back to you.
The CP24 traffic report is brought to you by CapitalDirect.ca.
Also making news, 3 people have been injured in an overnight stabbing in Mississauga. This is a live look of that scene. Peel police were called to the Wolfdale Road and Forestwood Drive area just before 1 a.m. for a domestic incident. A female teenager was rushed to a trauma center in life-threatening condition, while a woman and male teen suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Police say a man was taken into custody and there is no threat to public safety or any outstanding suspects. A large police presence remains in the area.
And a man has pleaded guilty of manslaughter in the death of former CBC journalist Michael Finley. 45-year-old Robert Robin Cropbeard-Wolf entered the plea in a Toronto courtroom yesterday. Finley was walking near Danforth and Jones last January. That's when he was shoved to the ground and seriously injured. A week later, he died of his injuries. And police previously called the attack random.
Well, 3 people are facing more than 300 charges in a series of thefts at LCBO outlets across Ontario. York police launched the investigation in January following 45 incidents in which nearly $90,000 worth of merchandise was stolen. 42-year-old Sarah McBride and 63-year-old Bruce Doucette are facing a handful of charges. The third suspect is 40-year-old Matthew Doucette. He was arrested outside an apartment complex in Mississauga and now faces close to 300 charges. According to investigators, during the arrest, he assaulted an officer and attempted to flee in a vehicle but was stopped by police. Investigators say they believe other retail stores may have been targeted, and they're asking any other victims to come forward.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, the Sporting Life 10K. It's this weekend. We're going to take a look at Campfire Circle, the cause it supports. That's next.
Welcome back. Well, the Sporting Life 10K, that is this Sunday. 20,000 participants. They are expected to take part in the run on Mother's Day in support of Campfire Circle.
And right now, we're joined live by Alex Robertson, the CEO of the Campfire Circle, and camper mom, Caitlin Black. So we have to talk about this. Since 2000, the Sporting Life 10K has raised more than $25 million. This is for Campfire Circle. Let's talk about that.
Yes, well, Campfire Circle is the only camp in Canada that can provide on-site intravenous chemotherapy and blood transfusions to really sick kids. And we also run programs in all of the children's hospitals across Ontario. And the cool thing is that it comes at no cost to our families. And so what the Sporting Life 10K does in terms of raising funds and actually really raising awareness is it's critical to the operation.
And so much of this, Caitlin, for you is about your son, known affectionately as Benjamin the Brave. Tell me more about your son, Ben.
So Benjamin was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer at the age of 4, and everybody was kind of reaching out and wanting to do things to help. And my aunt decided to make him this cape here. Let's see. And so he kind of presents as Benjamin the Brave when he goes into the hospital. He wears this cape every single time he goes in there for any appointment. And our entire team then wears these when we run the race. So you'll see a bunch of blue capes flying down, 40 people this year on our team.
And that's all for Benjamin.
Yes.
What does that mean to him when he sees that kind of support?
He's so proud. This program just impacted him so positively. When he looks back on his cancer journey, he's in remission now, 1 year. So when he looks back on his cancer journey, it's with so much positivity, and he's just so confident about it. And I think a lot of it has to do with Campfire Circle and, you know, the joy they bring in hospital. They just really change the experience for the better for these kids.
What do you want to say about the popularity of this race? And then also, you still have a lot more to go, a lot more that you want to accomplish.
Sure. I mean, for one thing, it is a downhill race. So, and by race, I mean it's a run or a walk. We have folks who are strolling. Over 20,000 participants this year, which is pretty awesome. And I think something that really connects people is that it's for kids with cancer and serious illness. That by registering, by making a donation, you're actually helping to change the life of a child who spends days and weeks that end up adding up to months living on the hospital floor. And Campfire Circle changes all that by giving kids a chance to build resilience, to make friendships that will last a lifetime. I mean, our programs are proven to improve overall well-being and mental health.
And what does it mean to you when you hear about the impact, when you hear about kids like Benjamin? What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, Caitlin and her family are just an absolute inspiration. I mean, have raised over $150,000 to help send families like yours to experience Campfire Circle. So it's inspiring to myself and to the hundreds of volunteers who participate in our programs annually.
You know, each race that you compete in, there's a sense of community, but there's a different sense of community with this 10K. Can you talk about that?
Sorry, I guess it's so touching that we get so much support. So for us, it's, you know, our family comes from out of town to run, friends and family from all walks of life. Like I said, we have 40 people running and walking this year, kids, people who are going for a personal best. And, you know, they're all there for him, and they all know him, and just having that support rallied around our family, it's just priceless.
Yeah, and it's on Mother's Day too.
Yeah, that's
so
it's a great
way to honor all the mothers and grandmothers out there.
And if you can't run or walk, you can still come out and support, right?
That's right. Benjamin will be handing out the medals at the end this year with his little sister. So
yeah, that's right. For any of the 20,000 participants, we have campers at the end who are handing out the medals. It is the most touching, inspiring way to finish the run.
That's got to be so special. So how much money are you hoping to raise this year, and where are you at?
Well, we have our eyes on the prize of $2.1 million. We just are coming up to 1.6 right now, so we still have some work to do, but I believe we can get there because we have such dedicated community members like Caitlin and her family, and so 20,000 runners who can spread the word about what Campfire Circle is doing.
And when it comes down to it, what do you want to say to people about the heart of this race?
Just if you can do it, if you can support any way, shape, or form, volunteer. If you don't have the means financially, it means so much, and it really impacts the way a child can look back on their experience with cancer.
It brings Toronto together too. I mean, it's our largest 10K in Toronto, and 20,000 people. It is a movement. You can feel it. It is really inspiring. So we hope to see you both next year. Yeah?
Next year. Next year. I can do it next year. I can't walk this year.
We'll do it next year, don't worry. Alex Robertson, the CEO of the Campfire Circle, and camper mom Caitlin Black. Have so much fun and good luck. Thank you for doing this and speaking with us.
Thank you for having us.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we're going to have the latest on the Toronto Police Tribunal hearing for Superintendent Stacey Clark. The disciplinary hearing for high-ranking Toronto police officer Stacey Clark, it continues today. She's accused of leaking exam questions to officers seeking promotion. CTV's John Woodward reports.
Superintendent Stacey Clark has apologized repeatedly for sending photos of promotional exam questions to junior constables in advance. And as the tribunal considers punishment, Clark's lawyer Joseph Markson says it must consider the context of her misconduct, saying this is a head-on collision with realities of anti-black racism in society, in policing, and in the promotional process. Anti-black racism, he argued, manifested in figures showing that black officers were advancing at slower rates than other ethnicities, possibly because of what he suggested was an open secret of question sharing among connected white officers, though Clark has not produced concrete examples.
It is not a rumor, but you're not going to have anyone standing there in that forum or speaking to the media and saying so.
Retired Superintendent David McLeod says Clark's text messages left clear evidence of that misconduct, something Clark admitted was a sign her actions were not a carefully thought-out plan, but rather emotional reactions to how the Toronto Police Service Board approved a plan she believed would make the promotions process more fair by sharing questions with everyone. But then the service suddenly canceled it.
I'm saying that it should not be the norm. It should not be the basis by which opportunities, training, and potentials are given an opportunity to succeed.
In recent years, the Toronto Police has acknowledged that it does arrest proportionately more black people and that its own reports acknowledge a perception of discrimination, reports made public as the service tries to improve its workplace culture. Markson argued Clark's actions should be considered in the context of trying to change the force from within as it struggles to change itself.
Well, that's it for us. Thanks so much for watching CP24 live at noon.